Hello and welcome back to another tactical analysis. Today it's going to be on Vincent Kompany's Bayern Munich, and I have at points been very critical of Vincent Kompany. In fact, I think at points I've called him not that good a coach. And I'm not going to say I was wrong because I believed that at the time, but he's starting to prove me wrong, and he's starting to show that he actually is on the road. I'm not going to say elite level because that's too reactionary, but he's on the road to being a top level coach. And this season, I think Bayern have comfortably been the best team in Europe. I think they're playing fantastic football. I think they're getting the best out of this group of players, which is a fantastic group of players. I think they're all performing to an elite level. If we go from the back to the front, Neuer, I think, has had one of his steadiest seasons in recent memory. Upamecano, if this is a player that you can only remember from a few years ago in major Champions League games as being the most mistake-heavy centre-back in the world, he is very far removed from that. I'm not saying he doesn't have that in him. He's a little bit like that kid from next door that's all of a sudden taking meds, and you're a little bit cautious of him because you remember what he was like before, but he seems so nice and mild-mannered now. But you know you could just go outside one day and he's in your tree chewing on a bird's nest. But he isn't chewing the bird's nest, Upamecano. He's performing at an elite level, on the ball, off the ball, and the defensive requirements to make this system work for Bayern Munich, for Vincent Kompany, you need to be an elite level defender, and he has shown so many of those qualities. I think in the last year and a half, he's been one of the best centre-backs in Europe. Lehmer, I think in that full-back position, right and left, is doing an unbelievable job. His movement, his athleticism, his aggression, his contribution to all phases of play. I think Kimmich, we're seeing him properly take control of games now and dictate play. And that front four, comfortably the best front four in Europe. I think they've got the two best starting wingers in the world at the minute, in Luis Diaz and Michael Olise. I think both have complemented each other fantastically. Gnabry, as well, in this sort of support strikery role, has reinvented his career, a player that was deemed to be on his way out of Bayern Munich. I think it started to receive a lot of criticism, especially last season. And Harry Kane, I mean, what else is there to say? Extraordinary. The fact that there are people that still don't rate Kane is madness to me. And you can see it lining up in a 4-4-2, and I do think that's what it is, but it's 4-4-2 with added fun. Added fun, because a 4-4-2, as we all know, is very fun anyway. It's the rotations, it's the overloading of each line of play that opposition teams are really struggling with. We've seen it tear Chelsea apart. We saw it absolutely batter Leipzig on the opening day. And it's not as chaotic. I think they had this element to them last season, but it felt less controlled, more chaotic, and it meant that the games could go into sort of any scenario at any point, and that was a negative for Bayern Munich as much as it was a positive. So, I'm going to go over some examples from the recent 3-0 victory against Frankfurt, which is a fantastic victory because Frankfurt are a really good team, to just examine those phases of play and how Bayern Munich get the best out of them. So, as you can see here, this is the first line of play from Bayern Munich, and this here is the midfield for Frankfurt, and you have the front two. So, as you can see, pretty easy to understand. They're pretty set in their shape, nothing wrong with that at all. But one man is going to exploit this, and that man is Joshua Kimmich. In between the two centre-backs, as you can see, there's Upamecano on the ball, and Kimmich has just slotted in between. And now, these two are in an issue. They're 3-on-2. The two forwards occupied with their wider centre-backs, with now Kimmich in the middle. They can't commit to either one because they're going to leave a free man with the press. The winger, as you can see, is concentrated on Bowie, and you've got the far side winger on Lehmer. And these two are occupied with the two pivots. And you see that's Gnabry dropping in. We'll discuss more of that in a minute. You've seen the space left by Kimmich. Gnabry's dropped in and made it a lot more difficult for that Frankfurt to go and engage and maybe go in full press on that initial line for Bayern Munich. And what this does now is with the added man in this defensive line, it means that Bayern Munich can play out, and it means they can get Kimmich on the ball in a lot of space to dictate the play. So the pass goes to him, and as you can see now, he's in between the two centre forwards who can't get close to him. He's been able to run through the middle of the pitch. The two centre midfielders for Frankfurt can't go and press because they've got this in the middle of the pitch now. They can't go and press because they're having to deal with the overload that Gnabry and Kane have helped commit to alongside Goretzka, even with Kimmich dropping into that defensive line. So Bayern Munich are creating a defensive overload, they're creating a midfield overload, and Frankfurt do not know what to do. And what that has done is now allowed Kimmich to drive forward with the ball. And also, I want to point out one lad over on this far side, Lehmer, because as you can see here, the right midfielder for Frankfurt is looking at Harry Kane. He's looking at the player in the centre. He's looking at the idea that he's maybe got to close up space between himself and his midfielder. He can't allow Harry Kane, now that Kimmich is leaving with the ball, to receive it to feet, to turn and play. But now what that's doing is allowing Konrad Laimer to make this run, because the centre-back is sort of half coming up. He's sort of half seeing whether he can go and press Kane and try and equal the numbers a little bit. Laimer sees that, and he's now exploiting the space in behind. He's ready to go and make that aggressive run in behind the Frankfurt defensive line, because of the questions it's asking of the midfield and what it could ask of the defence. And these are the issues that you deal with when you've got a first line and second line overload. Is that third line then for the opposition have to gamble and leave space. And it's not even just Laimer making that movement to receive the ball, it's the fact that you'll get maybe this guy moving inside, because he has to potentially track that run of Laimer if the centre-back doesn't see it. And then that leaves Luis Diaz on the far side in a lot more space to be able to use his pace, use his dribbling ability to drive the ball up the field and create dangerous opportunities. And that's a testament to the coaching of Vincent Kompany. You think you've shut off one method of playing, or then they just open up another one. You think you shut that one off, you react and you think you're doing the right thing. Another way to play through and destroy you's opened up. So it's so difficult to deal with. And also, the effect of Gnabry dropping in as well. As you can see, Kimmich has driven the ball out of defence now. He's got Goretzka alongside of him here in the midfield. So that's the simple midfield too. He's beaten the two strikers, and now the midfielder has come to gamble and come to press to try and prevent him from dictating the game. Again, as we know Kimmich can do, he's a fantastic orchestrator. Gnabry, though, however, has dropped into a position here in the midfield. He's in a 3-on-2 against that midfield 2 for Frankfurt now. The wide midfielder doesn't know whether to stick in and pick him up or stay closer to Sacha Boey. So as a result, that pass gets made to him. The midfielder comes close to him, and now Kimmich can run off into space and just look at all that he's got to deal with in terms of what he can attack now. And he's got the ability to face forward on the pitch and play forward to Luis Diaz, to Harry Kane, to Michael Olise, to Laimer, who can underlap or overlap on the far side in a lot more space. So Gnabry dropping in, overloading the midfield, bringing this guy out so it leaves him in no man's land really, because of Kane dropping in and now Kimmich attacking the space, because you never want to have your centre midfielders like this, spread apart, exploited, exposed. And Gnabry dropping in has allowed that, and he's not just done it brilliantly with his passing. Even if there's not space he can play through, maybe if an opposition midfielder doesn't commit, Gnabry's dribbling can commit players on his own, and he's done that a number of times this season to create space for others, especially driving the ball through the centre of the pitch to then leave the wide player in a lot more space and play the pass, where Olise and Diaz can do what they do best. And this was the second goal, and I thought this was a fantastic look at the attacking line and what they can do to opposition teams. So as you can see, Kimmich's received the ball here. You've got Gnabry and Kane, who are in sort of attacking midfield zones. Gnabry making movement in behind the defensive line, as you can see here, maybe looking to receive the ball or create space. Kane dropping in to receive that threaded pass from Kimmich just to the side of the midfielder he can turn in space. And because of those two dropping in, looking to create central overloads, you have Luis Diaz, who's come in from the wide area to the centre of the pitch to still occupy that defence and just give them something to think about, so they can't go and press Gnabry or Kane, run the risk of pressing these guys without leaving themselves exposed. And Laimer's taken up Diaz's position on the far side at left back. So what happens now? The pass goes into Diaz, Gnabry's making the run. The defensive line now has dropped just a little bit. There's space now between him and Luis Diaz because of Gnabry making that movement undetected, untracked, so it means that other players have to respond and panic. Diaz now receives the ball. The two midfielders are turning around to look at him because they're aware they may have to react, and all of a sudden now this leaves Kane in a lot of space. So he's now picked this pocket in between centre midfielder and wide player. You've got this player here making a movement to try and get back into the defensive line to make sure that Diaz can't get as clear a chance on goal as he can from this position, because this is threatening. And what does Harry Kane do when he receives the ball in this position? Buries it right into the bottom corner. Look at the space he's got to pick his shot, and for the love of God, you cannot leave Kane in space to take a shot like this. His finishing is up there with the elites, if not he is the absolute elite. And you're seeing the questions that Bayern Munich are asking to give him the platform to produce this form. in the first line, in the second line, in the third line, overloading each area of the pitch, asking questions of the opposition, and as a result, they can just create chances at whim for players in absolute unbelievable form. It doesn't matter if Kane misses a few chances. This is just going to create an absolute lorry load of them. Off the ball, I still have my questions about Bayern Munich. I still think they're a little bit vulnerable, but athletically, physically, they have great players on that team that make the difference, and that is just as important in terms of tactically how you set up. They go high man-to-man with their pressing shape. As is the case in man-to-man press, all it takes is one player losing the run, losing their man, and it falls apart like a deck of cards. But brilliant individual performances from the likes of Upamecano, from the entire defence, to be fair. Great athleticism, aggression, dual-winning capabilities, so that it doesn't expose them as much as it could. Obviously, we'll wait to see them play a really, truly elite team in Europe. I know they beat Chelsea, but they should beat Chelsea, realistically. I'm talking to PSG, I'm talking to Barcelona, and let's see how they cope against those. But I think this is the most equipped that Bayern Munich have been in a few years to go and really challenge for the top honours, and I think Vincent Kompany is creating a monster here, and fair play to him, and fair play to the team. I'd love to know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments down below. I'll see you next time. In a bit, lads.